Reinstatement. Impacts of the military draft. Wars are the most complicated and destructive occurrences in the history of the world. They destroy civilizations, economies, infrastructures, and lives. Grade 3. This is an excerpt from a student research paper from Colby College about the military draft and its effects. The military draft was a program that lasted from 1917 to 1973 in the U.S., where the government would take young men and draw their names from a lottery for them to join the military. It was first used on July 20th, 1917, during World War I due to lack of volunteers in the military, and was last used in the Vietnam War. It was ended in 1973 as a way to stop protests against the Vietnam War due to the government believing people would stop protesting if they didn't have to fear being drafted. The military after 1973 became a full-on volunteer-based army, but in the late 2000s the draft has been a hot topic and is on the table to be reinstated. The big question is, how has the military draft affected the common ethnic and political views of the United States? The military draft has affected the United States by making it something useful to gain political power, affected the economy of everyday citizens and government, and changing our views of ethics in war. The military draft has affected the political views of the U.S. by making it a topic that can be used to gain political support. Since the beginning of the 2016 presidential race, the draft has been a sensitive subject around women. It has been a topic where in some states it can help you win support and others lose support. Many candidates have used the idea of women in the draft to gain political support from voters. Also, there's a lot of pressure on the government to allow women to be drafted, and making it a topic can either let you stay in office or not. For example, in the Republican debate on February 13, 2016, presidential candidates were asked if the selective service or draft should include women. Candidates Florida Senator Marco Rubio, former Governor Jeb Bush, and Florida Georgia Governor Chris Christie said that they would include women, and Chris Christie has since dropped out. Browning. This quote shows that politicians use the draft to gain political support because this example shows how almost all candidates said that women should be drafted. By doing this, they were able to stay in the race except for Chris Christie. This supports my claim that the military draft helps people gain political support because by using a topic that's important to a community, Republican sense, or where we gain support in pro-women military state, such as North Carolina. Also, in a CNN video after, on the military draft of women, it states that
contrasting viewpoints that could tip the scales in a military state like South Carolina, where 75% of all female Army recruits are trained.
this shows that by using the idea of women in the military draft in a pro-military state such as South Carolina, people were able to gain support from political power because by using the draft in a pro-military state such as South Carolina, they were able to get what the people wanted to hear and help tip scales of who would gain support in that state. Secondly, the military draft has affected the economy of the U.S. government and those of normal citizens. Since the first army in ancient times, there has been a cost revolving around equipment, manpower, food, water, and transportation of the military. The commanding power has to raise these funds to accomplish these economic demands, which can get pricey very fast. This is no different in today's world, except the technology is more advanced and things are more expensive to maintain. Weapons, transportation, and equipment are really expensive. For example, if the draft was brought back and about 2 million people taking on the workforce, that would take a big hit on the economy. The government would have to pay them, that in training costs, food, uniforms, ammunition, and that make a tight sum that can only be raised by taxes. In this graph, it shows in 2015 U.S. military budget and the costs revolved around it. Both of these show that the military draft affects the economy of the government because Because just in 2015, the U.S. spent $489 billion on their military. But if the draft is brought back, this would get even higher because since the military is right now volunteer based, there's not a lot of people in the military. But bringing back the draft causes the cost to go up because there'll be more people in the military, more stuff to pay for. Also, for military to operate, it costs about $50,000 to $100,000 a year, and therefore the soldiers' wage would be too low for people to supply the labor sources to feed and clothe the soldiers. This shows that in a year, on average, almost almost about a tenth of $1 million are spent to maintain are spent doing that, and that's just for soldiers' wages, which is super low. But if the draft is brought back, these wages would have to go up because would have to go up to pay for all the people, but then everyone else would not have enough money to pay for their stuff like food, clothes, and those soldiers because they spend all their time and resources to pay for that. This shows how the draft affects the economy of the U.S. government systems because if less people work normal jobs or every life, there will be less revenue. And if the money is used to supply military, then how will be enough for those making the equipment to survive their normal lives? In economic and political decisions in the government, there may be ethnic beliefs that will be broken in order to achieve these decisions. The military drafts affected the ethnics of the U.S. by changing how people view war and military. War is all about fighting based on the belief that what a country thinks is right and fighting for that belief. It is based on our ethics of what we believe is right, wrong, and fight for that belief. Ethnics of soldiers we send to fight for those principles has been something that has never been focused on in the past year. Now the idea of bringing back the draft, ethnics of our soldiers have become a serious factor in the decision. Those in support of bringing back the draft believe that by implementing the draft again will cause politicians and voters to be more selective in choosing which battles are worth fighting and at what expense. This shows that the draft will cause those who make the decisions on what wars the U.S. fight think about the human costs on our side, and having the draft back, Congress and the President will think how many of our soldiers will die, and not just our opponent. It shows how the draft affects how people view the military, and because it shows how government will think more about the human costs of war and fighting the war. Secondly, in war, the weight falls upon the shoulders of civilians who may not be drafted. The war becomes the ultimate cost of life, and not just winning. Grady. This example shows that the draft will cause people to think about not just if we will win the war, but how many of our troops will die achieving victory. It shows how people will see victory not if our opponent surrenders, but how many of our soldiers die trying to bring its victory. It connects back to how the draft affects how people view the military and the draft, because by having the draft back and people being put in the military, the U.S. will take into account of human lives in war. Ethics, politics, and economics of the draft will have to consider when thinking about bringing the draft back. So, how has the military draft affected the economy, ethnic, and or political views of the United States? The military draft affected the United States in making the draft something used to gain political power in pro-military states, gain power by saying you support the draft, or non-pro military draft states where you can say, I do not agree with the draft. It matters on what you say in each state, and you gain power according to those. Also, it affected the economy of everyday citizens and government by making the spending on our military go up because there's more people in the military, which means more equipment, more ammo, more everything, and it'll be less money for everyday needs such as shelter, healthcare, stuff like that. And thirdly, it changed how people view the ethics of war. The draft has made so that people view the war not just as if we'll win the war, but how many of our soldiers will die. This topic and idea of bringing back the military draft is important because if the U.S. brings back the military draft, the political effect, economic cost of soldiers that could die all are being considered. If they aren't, then what is to stop us from going to another Great Depression because we have no money to pay for the war, or will it stop us from viewing the lives of other people, of our soldiers dying? Thank you for listening.